Your station, 101 FM, with Saturday Sports Scene.
Good morning and welcome to Sports Scene again for another week right here on 101 FM. Kevin Braysher here with you as always. It's 6 minutes past 8. We're going to be with you all the way through till 10 o'clock talking through all the latest and greatest news in sports. And it's a massive, massive weekend in the world of football, at least in AFL footy and the NRL as well. It's Intrust Super Cup finals underway, the NEAFL Grand Final this weekend. It is all happening and we're going to talk about all of that today here on Sports Scene. Joining me to talk about everything, Darren Madigan, the founding father of Sports Scene. Mate, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. What a week it has been around the world even. It's footy finals. We love that. I love the smell of the newly cut grass. But during the week, in fact, in the last couple of days, we've had cricketers banned for life. We've had race fixing in NASCAR with some of the highest profile people in the sport. But the best thing for me this week was the IOC. They know how to do it right. They announced a new president, and we got our own vice president in there in John Coates. But the bling, there's no gold watches at the IOC. They gave him a great big gold necklace with that gold leaf thing hanging off the side surrounding the 5 rings, and he was very proud. He didn't take it off or put it back in the box. He sat down in his chair with his big gold bling around the neck, and you had to wonder about the secret society that we think that the IOC sometimes is.
You know, mate, it looked like something Kanye West would wear. It was ridiculous. It was just so extravagant.
You know what it reminded me of? Going back before you guys were probably born, when rap first started in the late 70s and 80s, and some of those guys used to wear those big clocks and stuff like that around their necks. And I just looked at him, I thought, you have got to be kidding me.
Also joining us on this show, AFL Queensland Hall of Famer and from the Southport Sharks, Mr. Craig Crowley. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. It's a little bit disappointing, a bit sad news from my perspective, but but for the football world, it's great, isn't it? Finals are really getting really exciting.
Absolutely, they are. And also joining us on the panel, rounding out the panel for the morning, Mr. Ethan James from the East Tigers. Mate, you guys had a good weekend last week.
Yeah, went up to Mackay and in the first week of finals up there and did the job on them, 31-18. So on to this week, which is a qualifier for the grand final up in Cairns. I'm not there, obviously, unfortunately, but the boys are playing tomorrow, and it'll be a tough ask, but hopefully they go well.
And we've got a man on the phone to tell us all about it.
Yeah, we do. East Tigers coach Craig Ingebrigtsen will be on at about 8:15. I got the name right there, Kev. Thumbs up. But he'll be on to talk through the finals match tomorrow and also a few other things relating to the competition and the club.
And, of course, the big signing during the week, Cody Walker to the Melbourne Storm. He, of course, picked up the Glory medal we were talking about last week for best and fairest in the competition. Melbourne Storm have picked him up during the week, and it's a good signing for them. As they lose Gareth Widdop and Brett Finch for next year, he's got a real opportunity there to play outside of Cooper Cronk. So it's a big move there for Cody. We will talk to him at 8:15, Craig Ingebrigtsen. And Norm Dare, Southport Sharks coach, also be on the line with us at 9 o'clock. So big show planned for you today. Let's get into the results overnight. We'll start with the NRL. And in the semi-finals, they got underway last night. South Sydney 20 defeating Melbourne 10. Interesting game of football, this one. The Melbourne, far from their best, pretty error-prone, I would say. But there was a controversial call there with the Billy Slater no try, and it was a real turning point, wasn't it, Ethan?
Yeah, it was. And I think the general consensus is that the video referee up there in the box got it incorrect. But I guess we'll have a little bit of a longer chat about that in a bit more depth a bit later. But Melbourne were far from their best, as you said. I think it was sort of strange. They looked almost a bit shell-shocked last night, which is sort of not something you really associate with Melbourne team with all that finals experience. But South just started, like a house on fire and did enough to hold on in the end. Can
you believe it, Craig? That's South Sydney's 4th win in a finals game since 1971. An incredible stat for such a club with such a rich history. To be starved of success for that long, to being with such a chance to win one this year, it's a great story.
Oh, it is a great story. They went into the wilderness for quite. I think they were out of the competition too as well. There's some ebbs and flows definitely, and it's just. I think for the competition in general, like the Storm have been up there, and I think them, to a certain degree, they're the people's favourite. They go through a lot. Yeah. But it's great to see other clubs coming in, and especially from the past, the strength of these sort of teams coming back to be what they were It's really important, I think.
Absolutely. The elimination final in the AFL last night, I should say, week 2 of the AFL semi-finals, Geelong overcame a halftime deficit, 13-18-96 to defeat Port Adelaide 12-8-80. Craig, how'd you see it, mate?
Geez, everyone, I think we're really getting worried about this, not for the sake of Geelong getting beaten, but the fairy tale just continuing. It was just a great story. Look, from where they've come from to where they are today, and probably for half a game last night, it is sensational. But as Ken Hinkley said in his post-match interview, it was just probably the lack of experience climbing that hill. It was just a little bit harder for these guys, and they will reap so many rewards from this particular venture into the finals. They'll get stronger. They've got the talent. There's no doubt about it to go as far as they have, but I don't think I'll be picking them last again.
Darren, you had a pretty interesting stat in relation to Port Adelaide. It's been an amazing story for them this year, but you got a good stat for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting that we're talking about the most successful club in Australia, and that's even from a legal point when they first came in as well, because they had to set up a separate entity to stay in the SANFL. But you're looking at a club that, to put it briefly, they've competed in roughly half of all grand finals in their competition since the 1880s, I think it is. And they've won around a third of all premierships. Now, over the last 10, 12 years, Centrals have sort of skew-iffed some of the stats a bit, but Port Adelaide are just the most magnificent club. And, despite both Craig and I picking them for the wooden spoon this year, I think we've all both been on record down through the years as having a hell of a lot of respect for what is an amazing football club.
Absolutely. I wanted a terrific story to spin, and let's not let Lee Hanatscheck, our motorsport guy, hear us talk about Port Adelaide in such a positive light. He might walk off the show. Other results are during the week, some more local ones. The Premier Rugby Grand Final was at Ballymore last weekend. East getting up 27-22 over GPS. They raced out to a big lead. GPS made it close in the end, but East well-deserved winners in that one. In the NEFL preliminary final last weekend, Aspley, a big win over Southport. It's 135-69. Craig, what happened down there? We'll talk about it more at 9 o'clock, but in short, mate, what happened?
Oh, they had lot to win for, and don't get me wrong, so do we. A spot in the grand final was looming, and look, they've just got youth, they've got speed, they've got desire. They had everything going on the day. They probably mentally had us beaten, I suppose, as well, because they've beaten us previously. But look, they well and truly deserve their position. They
sure do, and they advanced to the grand final, are taking on the Brisbane Lions this weekend. In the Intrust Super Cup finals last weekend, the elimination final, Ipswich 33-6 over Winner Manly, and in the other final, East Tigers 31-18 over Mackay. East taking on Northern Pride this weekend, and Ipswich go on to face the Mackay Cutters. Darren Madigan, what else is happening in the world of sport, mate?
Yes, and just taking a look at the tennis, we're in Davis Cup mode this weekend. The girls are playing a couple of tournaments, but they're really, all the top players are just taking a rest. So the couple of tournaments that are on really aren't worth worrying too much about. The Davis Cup, however, is obviously big. World Group semi-finals. Serbia and Canada are currently one rubber each in that tie, and a special note there, Novak Djokovic, a big win over his opponent there, 6-2, 6-love, 6-4, but Janko tips Saravic 7-5, 3-6, 6-3, 3-6, 8-10. So gone down to Raonic there from Canada. So they've drawn 1-1 level there. Czech Republic 2-0 up over Argentina, and not a lot of big names there playing for Argentina. Nalbandian's not playing at all, or none of the names that you would sometimes expect to just turn up for Davis Cup duty. The World Group playoffs, important for us in Australia to stay up into that get back up into that top group again. We've got Australia 2 leading Poland zip in Warsaw at the moment. They're playing in an indoor tournament in indoor court on clay. And Leighton Hewitt won his first against Kubot, 6-1, 6-3, 6-2. And then Bernard Tomic won also in 3 sets, 7-5, 7-6, 6-4. So, and Channel 7 or 7-2, one of those things. Check your local guys. They are actually showing it I was a little bit surprised on that because I wasn't aware that they're actually going to be showing it, but it is on telly. As far as the rest of them are concerned, Spain 2-0 up over Ukraine, Netherlands 2-0 up over Austria, Croatia and Great Britain 1-1, Switzerland 2-0 up over Ecuador, Germany 2-0 up over Brazil, and Israel 2-1 up over Belgium. They're a day ahead of everybody else, and Japan and Colombia 1-1 there at the Coliseum in Tokyo. In cricket overnight, at stumps, we have Pakistan require 106 runs with 5 wickets remaining to win that second test there in Harare. We have the 4th one-day international to be played tonight. It's really down to a 3-match series now between Australia and England. That we played in Cardiff overnight, so another late night in front of the telly. We've also seen India and Rajasthan Royals fast bowler Sreesanth. He's been handed a life ban by the BCCI, that's the Indian Cricket Board, for his involvement in spot fixing in the IPL in 2013. His Royals teammate and Mumbai spinner Ankit Chand was also banned for life following the board's disciplinary committee in Delhi yesterday. The International Olympic Committee, we touched on that earlier on. I still can't stop laughing when I think of that bling. But Thomas Bach, the German, has been elected as only the 9th president in the 119-year history of the competition. You wonder why we think it's a bit of a society. Australia's John Coates has been elected unopposed as the new IOC vice president. Funnily enough, his rival was going to be a guy from Syria, so you can make what you will of that one. Formula One, Kimi Räikkönen, you might have heard during the week, has signed to partner Fernando Alonso for the next 2 seasons. What's the bet? Fernando Alonso doesn't hang around. I just can't see that working. It's like Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost all over again. During the week, we also saw, Michael Waltrip Racing in NASCAR actually get some big fines and booted from the NASCAR chase. This is one of the biggest stories in the history of NASCAR. Michael Waltrip Racing out. He is a big name over there. His brother's even bigger, and they're both involved in Fox Sports in commentary. And Michael still does the occasional race and competes very, very highly, as he has done this year. So that's a big, big drop for them. Jeff Gordon, in an unprecedented move overnight, has been moved into the chase as the 13th driver. Normally it's only 12 in the chase at the end of the year, but he's been moved in there because of all these other circumstances that have arisen. So Jeff Gordon fans who last weekend thought he was out, he's now back in. As far as the Casey Stoner as well, has been reported. The ABC's reporting Casey Stoner will call it quits on his V8 supercar experiment at the end of the year, set to take a break from all motorsport in 2014. He's been racing in the second tier V8 series, as you probably know, but the prospect of him returning to MotoGP appears pretty remote in 2014. Most likely scenario is he'll take 12 months off and just have a break for a while. Is probably, I think it's something he's been telegraphing for quite a while as far as motorsport is concerned. Olympic FC are the inaugural National Premier League Queensland Grand Final winners, coming in from 2 goals down to defeat Brisbane City last Sunday evening. So a great effort from them. We are in Misano for the San Marino MotoGP this weekend, and after free practice 2, Marc Marquez is currently leading the timesheets from Danny Pedrosa and Valentino Rossi and Jorge Lorenzo. Australian Brian Staring is sitting down in 23rd spot at the moment. As far as the golf is concerned, we have the BMW Championship being played in Illinois. Now, this tournament is the second last tournament for the year before we go to the Tournament Players Championship. It's part of the FedEx Cup. Jason Day is currently tied for 9th. The leader at the moment is Brandt Snedeker on 11 under. And as I said, Jason Day tied for 9th. Matt Jones tied for 17th, the Australians. And Adam Scott also tied for 10th there. As far as the girls are concerned, they're playing their 5th major. They have 5 majors on their tour for the year. This is the Evian Championship in France, and Mika Miyazato currently leading after the first round with the first round 65, and there's a bunch of Aussies tied on 6. Lindsay Wright, Lydia Ko and Kari Webb all after first round 68s. We also saw practice in the V8s. Craig Lowndes broke the lap record with a 108.9334 at Sandown, looking really good for a race that he's won so many times it's hard to keep count. And qualifying, I can tell you, is happening right now as we speak in Chicagoland for the NASCAR. Joey Logano currently on provisional pole. That will probably change from Brad Keselowski. And I'll just take a look and see where Marcus Ambrose is. He's currently 25th at the moment there. So fingers crossed by the time there isn't many left to actually run. There's only 2 more drivers to go. One, Pablo Montoya and Yelly. So Montoya could cause a bit of grief up the top there, but that's about it. Certainly Marcus Ambrose isn't going to improve on his position. Kevin?
Thank you very much for that, Darren. We'll take a break here on SportsScene. When we come back, we'll get Craig Ingebrigtsen, the coach of the East Tigers, on the phone to talk us through the world of the Intrust Super Cup. Stay with us here on SportsScene.
Hi, Steve Kieran Lawyers. Suffered a misfortune? Call us and we'll tell you what to do. No obligation, no win, no fee, no litigation loans. Call 1300 Lawyer, 1300 529 937 or go to kieranlawyers.com.au.
Your station sponsor.
Welcome back to SportsScene here on 101 FM. 23 minutes past 8. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Craig Crowley, Ethan James, all here with you. And joining us on the phone, he's the coach of the East Tigers Footy Club, Craig Ingebrigtsen. Craig, welcome to the show, mate.
G'day, Kev. G'day, guys. Great to be here.
It's great to have you on the show, mate. You're joining us from up there in Cairns, where you will be taking on the Northern Pride this weekend. You got there with a 31-18 win over Mackay last weekend, also on the road. You're 1 win away from the grand final, mate. First of all, tell us about that win over Mackay last week and your thoughts on your side's performance.
Yeah, we were really good last week, especially in the first half. We jumped out to a big lead. We played some really good footy on the back of our forward pack, really being dominant through the middle, and obviously through our very good 5'8" Cody Walker. So yeah, we're really happy with last week. We faded in the back end of the game, but I'd probably put that down to just being a little bit complacent. But yeah, really happy with where we're at, and big day up here tomorrow for us.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Cody Walker there, mate, but joining him in the halves last week for a bit of a one-off appearance, I guess, Gareth Widdop, who of course ran out with the Storm last night. How did Gareth go in his one game for the East Tigers?
Yeah, Gaz was good for us, mate. He just fitted in really well. He didn't overcall anything, and he still stuck to our process. He didn't try to reinvent the wheel, which was really good, and him and Cody combined very well, which was great to see.
Yeah, with having Gareth in the side, I guess he only had 2 training sessions before the match. Is it a bit of a disruption to the team having a player sort of come in at such short notice, or do you think the guys sort of handled it pretty well?
Yeah, look, to be honest, at first when Craig rang me and asked me to do it, we did think it was going to be a disruption, but we handled it really well, and the boys basically really embraced it, and we ran with it, and it was great. And Gareth was good for us, mate. He's just a really professional young man, so our guys learn a lot from him.
Sure thing, mate. And we'll talk about it now. We touched on it just before, playing with Cody Walker in the halves. Cody will get more chances to play with Melbourne players as of next season, of course, because he signed with them this week. Tell us, mate, a little bit about Cody Walker. He's had a phenomenal season, picking up the Courier Mail medal for Player of the Year in the Intrust Super Cup. Tell us a bit about him and how you think he's going to go next season under that Melbourne structure.
Yeah, just about him, guys. He's a really level-headed young man. He doesn't let anything faze him. He's very good at sticking to structures and sticking to processes, which our buzzwords all the time around our club and our team. The big thing about Cody is he's a grounded young man. He doesn't get ahead of himself, and he's a very instinctive footballer who's got so much potential and so much skill. I mean, he's NRL ready. I think I've said that a few times in a few different sort of media outlets, and I think he's really ready to go at NRL level, and I'm sure he'll be a bonus to the Storm because he adds a bit of difference to a football side. He's got great feet, good kick, left footer, all those things that are hard to come by.
Yeah, just on Cody, Craig, he's had just his season in general this year. I mean, he went down to train with Melbourne in the pre-season before this season. He injured his shoulder and he didn't get back on the field until I think it was round 9. So to finish with the Courier Mail best and fairest for the year and also top point scorer for the comp, it's a pretty remarkable sort of effort considering what happened to him at the start of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, it is remarkable, and I'll put that down to his will and desire. A lesser player wouldn't have worked so hard. They would have thought, well, I'm out for Cody was supposed to be back in round 12, and he made a conscious effort that he was going to, he kept saying to me, Trigger, I'll be back in round 7. I kept saying, no, you won't, mate. The doctor said 12. But he worked so hard, and he deserves everything he's got here, all the accolades and, the NRL contract. He deserves those things. He's worked so hard to get here, to get to where he is.
He's going to, potentially, if he gets his spot in the NRL side there, he'll be playing alongside a pretty good halfback there in Cooper Cronk. How do you think those two will combine together?
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be a learning curve for Cody because Cody's the boss. He likes to be the boss in the Queensland Cup, so it'll be really good for him to have to take a back seat and learn off one of the best. But I'm sure he'll adjust to that, and I'm sure he will be a major benefit to the Storm next year.
Absolutely, mate. And also, it's been reported this week that the Broncos had a chance to pick up Corey earlier in the year. Is there any truth to that? And do you think it was a mistake, or if there is truth to that, it was a mistake on the Broncos' part to let him go?
Yeah, don't know too much about it. I know that they had an opportunity, to probably have to view him, and I think it is a mistake. I mean, he is out, and he's easily the best player in the Queensland Cup. Very instinctive, very smart, and obviously the Bronx in their halves at the moment probably need someone like that. So, look, each their own. They're looking at different things, but the best club in the country, which is Melbourne, and there's no doubt about that. Just the way they conduct themselves, they picked him up, and he'll be great for them.
Craig Crowley, mate. You played the Pride 2 times this year, and you've had some losses against them. After, obviously, we all know in the coaching role, when you do have losses, you've got more formula there to get, to work out where you can possibly win the games. Without letting the cat out of the bag, is there anything in particular you're going to really try to do differently in this particular game that you haven't done in previous games against them that can make the difference?
Yeah, Craig, win. No, to be totally honest with you, mate. Yeah, look, we have, and you're right, you're spot on. Look, we are trying a few different things this weekend because we have a second bite of the cherry. If we do get beat, we're actually going to try to move them around a fair bit. Like we've tried to grind away with them in the last 2 encounters, and they're very big, they're very mobile, so we weren't able to do that. So we've decided we're going to move the ball around and probably try to get at their C&D defenders and get at their halves early in the tackle count and just see if we can move their core 4 around as much as we can and just see how that stands up at the back end of the game.
That's it. Darren Madigan, you got a question for us, mate?
G'day, Craig. Darren here, mate. I haven't had a chance to get down to Burleigh Park during the course of the season and actually see them play. I think I've actually seen the Pride play more down south than I have up here. But the crowd, I mean, there's been a call go out during the week in the both on the news and in the Cairns Post to get the Cairns District Rugby League people right behind the Northern Pride's cause. What sort of a crowd can Burleigh Park be like if it's packed? I mean, have you experienced that before?
Yeah, only once a couple of years ago. Yeah, look, it's it can be quite frightening. I mean, look, they've got a lot of support, and when they do that, they get behind them, and it can be a little bit intimidating. A bit like last week, to be honest with you. Last week we really up against it. I don't know the numbers up there, Ethan, you might know, but it was somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 people weren't real nice towards us and obviously towards Gaz and a few of our other Melbourne boys, and that was a bit intimidating, but our blokes handled that really well. We actually silenced the crowd and kept them out of the game. So we'll be trying to do that again tomorrow. We need to get on top early and keep the crowd out of it if we can,
Yeah, what about the travel factor, mate? Like last week up to Mackay, this week back up there to Cairns. How do you boys handle such a big travel load over a 2-week period?
Yeah, Kev, this is our third travel in 4 weeks. We're at Cairns a little bit, probably 3 weeks ago or something. So, look, we're just learning to adjust to it. We come up a day early. We come up yesterday afternoon so we can prepare a bit better because it is very, very warm up here today, and we're just trying to make sure that we do the best preparation possible to give us the best chance. We've had a tough week this week. We've lost a couple of really key players through injury, and then last night we've had Mahi Whanua taken off us because of Sissawanga's injury. So, we've had a tough week, but we'll certainly go down swinging if we go down. So, yeah, look, we're giving ourselves the best chance.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, mate, you're missing a few blokes there in the forwards. Guys like Dane Hogan, who's got a bit of NRL experience. Langi Setu, who was injured last week, unfortunately as well. And also Liam McDonald. How much do those guys sort of play a part in the team's success, and can you cover their absence?
Oh, they're massive. Like if we have those three on the field, I believe we win because the three of them are valuable contributors to our group. So, We could have rolled the dice and risked them all this week, but we've decided to try to get them fit and prepare for the coming weeks. So, answer your question, they're very vital to us, and they will be missed. But we're giving blokes opportunities who mightn't have had those opportunities previously.
Mm-hmm. Just last question we want to ask you about this game, mate, before we ask you quickly about something else. Just give us one reason why the East Tigers are going to win this game of football. If there's one thing that you guys have as your advantage in this game, what is it?
Mate, to really fair, and I know this sounds a bit weird, but we've got such a club spirit and such a club culture this year that I haven't seen it at a Queensland Cup club before. There's a real tightness in our group, and there's a desire and a will. I mean, this club hasn't won a premiership for 20-odd years. I think 1991. It's been a long time between drinks, and the guys here really are starting to take some ownership about that. They really believe in their club, and most importantly, they believe in themselves. So that's the biggest thing that I believe we could that would take us to where we need to go tomorrow afternoon.
And just on that sort of club spirit, Craig, East have got all three grades playing in major semi-finals this weekend. So if everything goes to a perfect plan, could feasibly see the Tigers, if they win all three, we have all three grades in the grand final at the end of this weekend. I guess that's testament to the depth and also the spirit, as you said, and the ethos of the club.
Yeah, it is. We've done a lot of hard work on that. We've really worked hard on our core values and what we stand for and the way we conduct ourselves. In the public arena, as well as what we do at training. So yeah, we're really proud of what we've achieved. But this group here, we haven't achieved anything until we knock off the best side in the comp tomorrow.
That's it. Look, we wish you the best of luck in that, mate. We can see that game live on Channel 9 tomorrow, kicking off at 1:30 p.m. Craig Ingebrigtsen, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate your time on the show. Good luck tomorrow.
Thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, mate. We'll take a quick break here on SportzScene. We'll come back. We'll talk a little more rugby league. Stay with us.
For the best musical memories from the 50s and the 60s, it's Ted's Memories. Saturdays from 4 p.m. and only on 101 FM.
101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday SportzScene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to SportzScene here on 101 FM. 25 minutes to 9, your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Craig Crowley, Ethan James, all here with you. We just got off the phone with East Tigers coach Craig Ingebrigtsen. They're taking on the Northern Pride tomorrow afternoon in the grand final qualifier. The winner advances straight to the grand final, which will be at North Ipswich Reserve in 2 weeks' time. Thanks again to Craig for being on the show with us. We really appreciate his time. The other final being played this weekend, of course, between Ipswich and Mackay. Ethan James, Ipswich, a big win last week over Wynnum Manly. Probably didn't expect the margin to be 33-6 as it turned out to be, but a great win for them. They take on Mackay, who got dusted up a little bit there by East Tigers last weekend. How do you see this one going there up at Virgin Australia Stadium tonight, 6 p.m? Yeah,
it'll be an interesting one. I was at the press conference with Mackay coach Kim Williams after the loss last week, and they were smarting. They were. He was very disappointed in the way his side played, and I think he was fairly sort of critical of them openly, even in the press. So I think they're going to bounce back, and they're going to bounce back well. They're going to have a big home crowd on their side up there at Mackay again. But the Jets, they played some really good footy last week. They threw the ball around, and I didn't think they had that many points in them either, to be honest. And I think they're sort of hitting form as well at the right time. So I can't pick it. It's going to be close.
Ethan, with this in the situation with Ipswich and playing well, and obviously their drive to make the final is pretty important because they've got the home. They might end up getting a home grand final. How significant is that for Ipswich if they play the grand final? If they make the grand final to play, is it a huge advantage to them?
Oh, it'd have to be. To play a grand final at your home ground with your home support behind you, and just to have that, comfort and knowledge of the field and all that sort of stuff, it'd be massive. They get a massive support. Any more
so with Ipswich being a little bit more, obviously Northern Pride and the Cutters, they're all up north, but just being outside of Brisbane and a little bit, not going to the normal ground that they have been playing at in town. Would it be any more so, or just the normal home ground advantage?
I think probably just a normal home ground advantage. Maybe just a slight sort of, stick it to the city slickers type mentality. I think that's what you're sort of getting at there. Yeah, but it'd be a home ground advantage, and that's something that, isn't really a luxury that's afforded to teams in the finals, of course, with the final usually, has been at Suncorp Stadium for the past few years. If they do play a team from up north, obviously the team from up north has to travel to contend with as well. It's not really an issue for the Brisbane side. It's only about 45 minutes away, so I think just a regular home ground advantage, but it's a pretty important little extra edge to have on your side if you do make it that far in the grand final.
Darren, got something to say there, mate?
Yeah, it's a heat thing too. Just taking a look at the forecast for Cairns tomorrow. Now, this is extremely conservative, 30 degrees, and looking at about a 20% chance of rain. But we're talking a 1:30 p.m. kickoff. You couldn't have picked the worst time of the day to actually run out in a footy field. And 30, I reckon it'll probably be more like 32, 33, and it'll feel like 35 out there for these guys playing. So I'm not sure what the interchange situation is these days in Intrust Super Cup, but I mean, gee, they'll want to be using every single one of them.
Yeah, that's it. And that decision, I'm not sure whether we can talk about it here too openly, but it comes down to the television broadcasting that has been pushed forward because they want to have the NRL match live on Channel 9 afterwards. And I mean, does that take precedence over sort of player welfare and that sort of stuff? Because, I mean, every match that's been up there for Queensland Cup, I'm pretty sure this year has been a night match on a Saturday night for the Northern Pride just because of the heat.
Always has, mate. Always has. I mean, at the very top level of the leagues, they do try and, obviously in the AFL and the NRL, you'll see big fans and stuff like that on the sidelines trying to look after them. But I can tell you now in the lower leagues, I grew up playing football up here. And we played summer football, actually, in Australian football for 4 years, up here. And it was, when you're used to it and you train it and you live in it, it's much, much easier. I mean, I don't recall ever me or my teammates ever going down with cramp or anything like that. But a team from down south, it's a whole different story. Even if it's only 5-6 degrees difference in Brisbane, it will be a big, big deal. Don't worry about it so much in Mackay. Mackay, for some reason, tends to be a few degrees cooler, but Cairns is a big, big ask.
The reality of the situation is, though, Channel 9 paid $1 billion for the TV rights, and they're going to do what they want.
Yeah, so absolutely.
That's what it comes down to it, but I 100% agree. It's going to be a tough day for them tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be stinking hot. But I'm sure it'll be a cracking game of football nonetheless.
In saying that, Kevin, it's a two-way street when they have to come down here too. The adjustment in weather, okay, it's not as significant, but there is still that adjustment, so it's a two-way street.
All right, well, we'll leave it there for now. That is the Intrust Super Cup, second week of the semi-finals. Ipswich taking on Mackay tonight up at Virgin Australia Stadium, and then the East Tigers taking on the Northern Pride tomorrow afternoon at Barlow Park. Let's talk about the world of NRL at the moment. Before we get to the semi-finals, some big news. Breaking during the week, Parramatta coach Ricky Stewart activated his get-out clause of his contract. He's left the Eels at the end of his first year of a 3-year deal with them, and he will be taking up a deal with the Canberra Raiders, a 3-year deal there. Guys, what do we think of this? I'll throw it open to you guys. Craig, we'll start with you.
Can I hold Craig back? He's actually never been.
I think Kevin wants to have something to say about this too.
I think we all do.
We'll get there.
Look, I'll start as being the other code. My thoughts have always been the same about players changing through the middle of the year. I couldn't get a handle on that. But this is, I don't reckon this is acceptable from, your coach. I don't think any coach can go into one club in 1 year and try to change it. It sounds like he was just waiting for an opportunity to get out, whether it's it didn't suit or he couldn't see the club progressing in the next 3 years. I don't know what it is. But to be honest with you, the players follow the coach. There's no ifs or buts about that. He's out there to, feed the way, let the players know this is where we're going. Change of coach is normally a change of direction in your football world. The unfortunate thing about it, he's let some players, or didn't let them go, sort of opened the door for them, and they moved on, and now he's gone and done the same thing. And I think, morally, I think it's wrong, probably ethically wrong. There's so much wrong about it. And look, to be honest with you, I don't think he's, it's not up to me to say how his performances have been, but, I don't think he's really, his performance have been that good that he can afford to just jump from club to club. And look, there might be personal reason. He might be looking after his family, but there are families of other people. The club, Parramatta threw him probably a lifeline to a certain extent and gave him an opportunity, and now he's just, I thought, to my way of thinking, just spat in their face.
Yeah, I think the biggest sort of issue that I have with it is just the dialogue that's been coming from him through the course of the year. Like he's spoken with the fans and he's spoken with the players and said, this is a long process. I'm going to rebuild the club. I'm in it for the long haul. It's going to take years. And then at the end of the season, he's like, no, I'm leaving. and then he goes. And I think that's just, it's hard to cop. I think it'd be hard to cop across the board, the supporters and the players. And as you said, Craig, like, he made the decision to essentially cut about 12 players. 12 players.
That's almost half the first grade squad.
Exactly. He made a decision to cut half the first grade squad as part of that, rebuilding process. And as we said off air before the show started, like, what about their families and their job security and their wage and, them being forced to leave the club? So he's left a lot of stuff in his wake, and now he's just sort of washed his hands clean of all the carnage and driven away to Canberra.
Right, pretty much. Look, if you've got an opinion about this or anything else we talk about here on the show, let us know about it. Give us an email, SportzScene, or at news@sportscene.com.au, SportzScene, SportzScene, SportzScene. That's news@sportscene.com.au. I think an interesting thing with the Ricky Stewart thing, we take a look at his coaching record over the last few years. Since 2009, he's won 10 of 51 games, which is just under 20%. I don't really understand why Canberra would be throwing big money at a guy who's won 10 of 51 games.
He's a favourite son.
It baffles me. What's that, Darren?
He's a favourite son.
In Canberra, yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think that's the only reason. I think this will be the last contract that he gets to. I mean, I want this guy negotiating my contracts from now. I think if we're talking about it like this, many other people are doing the same thing, and I don't think he's going to be able to pull the same stunts from now on. I think this is the last time he'll be able to do it.
Look, I'm not going to criticise a guy for making a decision based on his family. I don't even think I criticise a guy for taking a better job if they have the opportunity and they have the means to get to it. I've never been one to criticise players for doing the same thing. The thing, as we say, with the Ricky Stewart thing has been the way he's talked all season. He's had he talk about the factions within the Parramatta board. What has Ricky Stewart not had his way at that club since he arrived? He got the opportunity to do exactly what he wanted with that team. He cut half the team. He's been talking how it's going to be a rebuilding sort of year, but really all he's delivered, he's turned up in very simple terms. I know this is probably the too simple way to look at it, but he's turned up on big money. He's cut half the squad, delivered a wooden spoon, and then disappeared after 1 year. So if I'm a Parramatta fan, I'm pretty filthy about that.
Yeah. We spoke a little bit off air about this, about Wayne Bennett being through so many clubs, but what he's done, and he's got situations with his family as well, and the welfare of his family. But the thing is, he's always stuck to his contracts. He hasn't gone out of his contract. He's been very professional in what he's done. Yes, he's gone to a few clubs, and that's up to any individual to finish their contract and make a decision after that, and the club to make a decision, because it is, don't get us wrong, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there in the way of any sort of elite football. And, it could have been the other way. Stewart gets sacked and we don't even talk about this, But so he's got on the front foot from that aspect. He's probably been proactive. But at the end of the day, he had an obligation. 3 years, he didn't even probably give the second year a chance. The opportunity comes up and he just goes. And look, it's great. As they spoke about it, there's a lot of his family down there, a lot of his wife's family down there. Look, all good to him for going down there and being a part of it, and I hope he does extremely well. But I just think, at the end of the day, I just feel for Parramatta. I really do. Like, they're at the wit's end, and then your chief jumps the ship. It just makes it really hard.
But we're going to have to leave it there because we'll run out of time on the rest of it. But last thing we will say on that one, Parramatta legend, rugby league legend, really, Ricky Stewart, Peter Sterling says he came out in the last couple of days saying he should explain to Parramatta supporters why this year wasn't a waste of time and why they're not starting from scratch or, from further back than they were before he started there. Yeah. I think that's a pretty fair thing to say because it's been a wretched year for Parramatta, and you've got to feel for their supporters. But we'll leave that there. We'll move on to the semi-finals. We'll start with last night's game, of course. South Sydney advancing to the preliminary final. They will have next weekend off. A good win over the Melbourne Storm. The first win over them in a couple of years. First of all, we want to talk about and just put some good thoughts out there, good vibes out there. Sissel Wanga, who took a horrific fall last night, didn't he?
Yeah, that was dreadful. And seeing that footage honestly made me sick to my stomach, the way he landed. I don't know if anyone out there saw it properly or saw it last night, but he went up for a bomb, to catch a bomb, got clipped as he was jumping and essentially flipped around and landed on his head.
Ow.
So it wasn't pretty scenes at all. The Medicab was out on the field after that. But honestly, seeing that footage and just thinking about it again, honestly, it makes me sick to my stomach. It wasn't a very pretty sight.
it wasn't pretty at all. So good thoughts go out to Sisawonga. I would imagine he'd be out for a couple of weeks at least. All the Medicab and the rest are saying the precautionary scans and the rest of it. They did everything right to get him off the field as safely as possible. So fingers crossed for him. What about the game itself there, Ethan? We talked about it just before. The turning point, or a pivotal point in that game, was that no try decision for Billy Slater. But really, Melbourne didn't do themselves any favours, did they?
No, it was a strange sort of performance from Melbourne. Generally, the way they sort of work into matches, they start with a really sort of structured, forward-orientated game plan and then spin it wide to the backs a bit later. But the way they sort of played last night, they seemed a bit sort of frantic and they were throwing it around willy-nilly a bit early, and they were definitely off their game. But full credit to South Sydney and the way they approached it. I don't think there's a more brutal physical side in the comp than South Sydney, and they just pummeled the Storm into submission early. They sort of ran out of steam a bit towards the end, but by that point the match was sort of already over and they'd had rattled up enough points to be sort of in a fairly safe position. So, but yeah, they're a scary side when they're at full tilt, South Sydney. It's
been a long time since they've won a premiership. Is this going to be the year that South Sydney break through and win another comp?
Yeah, I can't see why not. They were just one win away from the grand final, and one win after that will give them the premiership. So, but yeah, when they're firing on all cylinders, they're an imposing side, and there's not too many other forward packs out there when they're going at 100% that can sort of match them. Probably the Roosters, the one pack that can sort of match them physically. But yeah, if they run like they did last night, they're going to be very hard to beat.
What about Melbourne? Are they gone, or they're still alive?
No, I think they'll bounce back. They get a home match next week, I think, against either the Knights or
the Bulldogs.
Or the Bulldogs, against the winner of that. I think that's definitely a winnable match for them, and if they can get that bit of confidence under the belt, I don't think they'll meet South Sydney again. They'll meet the other top side. Yep. So I give them a big chance of bouncing back. They're a classy club and they've got a lot of skill in their side, so I think they definitely can.
How much difference from the top three sides? Obviously, Rabbitohs,
South Roosters, Melbourne, and Manly top four.
Top four.
How much difference from the bottom four to the top four?
A fair bit.
Yeah, looking at the course of the season, there's been a bit of a gap consistently between those top four. I think they've been the top four for almost 3/4 of the year or something.
Yeah, pretty much all season.
It's hard to see any of those sides not sort of making it through to the final four once we get to that point of the competition. So there is a bit of a gap.
Well, let's talk about a couple of teams that will be pushing to do that. The first elimination final this afternoon at Allianz Stadium. Game one of the doubleheader being played at Allianz Stadium. The Sharks up against the Cowboys. The Cowboys coming in off 6 consecutive wins to make it through into 8th spot. All the momentum behind them. The Sharks will welcome back the likes of Todd Carney. Andrew Fifita will be there as well. How do you think this game is going to go, Ethan? The Cowboys, plenty of momentum on this side coming into this game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The Cowboys are in red hot form. Plenty of potency in their offence. But the Sharks are just that really sort of quintessentially sort of tough footy side, and they've been playing, really strong, disciplined sort of footy all season, and that'll leave them in good stead for this match. The Cowboys are probably getting into their good form on the back of a bit of flamboyance, which has the potential to maybe come undone in a sort of pressure situation. But we'll see how it goes. I'm on the bandwagon of the Cowboys for sure.
Absolutely, I'm pulling for the Cowboys in this one as well. Darren Madigan, how good was it last weekend? Matt Bowen's last game at home, he scored a late double for him. How happy did that make the people in attendance, and I guess the people of North Queensland in general?
Oh, they're just a little bit happy, you can imagine. It's funny, you take a look at the barometer of the city and the region, which is the Townsville Bulletin, and out of the top 7 or 8 stories on sport, 5 of them are all about the Cowboys. There's a story about the Crocs and something else in there as well. I mean, it gives you an idea of what this side means to this region, and when they're winning, which they hadn't been doing for a long time, it's just incredible. But yeah, Matty, to top it off, to have that emotion there already with the Cowboys doing what they're doing, and then to top it off with someone like Matty Bowen coming along, who is probably the favourite son, it's just been incredible, and it's just the talk has just not stopped.
Absolutely. But we're tipping the Cowboys. I'll tip the Cowboys in that one. I think it'll be a cracking game of football, though. What do you reckon, Ethan?
Yeah, I'd like to say the Cowboys, so we're going to back them to win.
They've got to win 10 in a row to get through the grand final, the Cowboys. That's a huge ask for them, but I think they can keep going for another week. The Roosters up against the Seagulls, the second of the doubleheader tonight, 7 p.m, Allianz Stadium. Who do you like, Ethan?
Yeah, that'll be physical.
Yeah, it will. Understatement.
Understatement of the week. Probably leaning slightly towards Sydney. I think they've got a little bit sort of more skill across the paddock, especially with Sonny Bill. So thinking Sydney, but close one.
Manly very dangerous in this type of game. A lot of talk about the injury to Brett Stewart during the week. That's a big big factor in this game. If he plays, it's a big boost for Seagulls. If he doesn't, it's a big loss for him. But I think that'll be a cracking game of football. You got to lean towards the Roosters the way they played this year, but Manly lift in big games, so look out for that one. And the final match of the round, the Bulldogs up against the Knights tomorrow afternoon at ANZ Stadium. How do you see this one going, mate?
Yeah, can't sort of pick either team. In this one, it's going to be another sort of match where you sort of make a case for both sides winning. Knights have been in probably the better form of the two, but Canterbury sort of have been there before, and they've got that that really strong forward pack as well. Newcastle, maybe?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one to pick, this one. Bulldogs haven't played their best football in the last couple of weeks at all. Ben Barber is expected to start. He's been named on the bench, but is expected to start in that game. If he can fire, that'll be a real good thing for him. But I agree. I lean towards Newcastle. I think they can win this game, but I don't think they'll advance further than next week, either of these sides, personally, once they get up against those top 4 teams. We'll leave the NRL there. We're going to take a break here on Sports Scene. Loads of NRL to talk about. We could keep going. It'll be the same once we get to the AFL in the next hour. Stay with us here on Sports Scene. We'll be right back after the break.
Life is for living, so live it. Life is for giving, so give it. Giving blood is cool, needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
You didn't know, did you? To produce pork, ham and bacon products, most mother pigs endure lives of misery in factory farms. Please, don't buy into cruelty. Help Animals Australia end this abuse forever. Call 1300-HELP-THEM or visit animalsaustralia.org for a free information pack.
Remember When with Richard Davey, bringing you golden musical memories from the 1920s to the late 50s every Sunday from 1 p.m. on 101 FM.
101 FM.
And now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. 5 minutes to 9. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, all here with you. We're going to shift gears a little bit now and talk a little bit of tennis. First of all, the US Open wrapped up during the week, and Rafa Nadal winning on the men's side, Serena Williams winning on the women's side. Just a couple of familiar faces there. Rafa, we'll talk about the men's side first. Rafa getting up in 4 sets over Novak Djokovic. What do we think of that win for Rafa Nadal there in the US Open, Ethan?
Honestly, I didn't see the whole match, but that was some of the best tennis I've ever seen Rafael Nadal play, I think. The way he sort of developed this game, and because he used to be sort of a clay court bully, that big forehand, used to struggle a little bit on the other courts, but the way he was playing, flattening out his shots and his court movement after the knee injury, he's a sensational player, and I almost don't think he gets enough credit for the way he's come back from injury the way he has.
And Djokovic has had a little bit of the wood on him in recent Grand Slam finals, so it's a bit of a mental thing there for him to get up over Djokovic, the world number one. A great win for Rafa Nadal. Darren, how did you see it?
Look, Rafa's been the best player in the world this year, in my opinion, and the stats, I think, pretty much show that. I mean, Rafa at his best versus Djokovic at his best. I'll take Rafa every time. The only question about Rafa Nadal in terms of his career and everything will be injury. I mean, I think the question marks about surfaces and his ability on different surfaces went about 4 or 5 years ago. When he won Wimbledon, and he's performed so well there down through the years, I think all those question marks went out the window. I think what it comes down to now is whether his knees can deal with the hard courts. Now, a lot of the hard courts these days are a bit more springy. They're not what we think of as hard courts when we walk out onto our local club surface, which is basically concrete. That's not what they play on. So I think really with Rafa, it comes down to just how long he can keep it up and how long, more importantly, his knees can hold up. But he is without question the best player in the world this year.
And just looking at his sort of career now, Darren, I think that was Grand Slam number 13 or something in that vicinity. And Federer's on 17?
17, yep, 17.
Yeah, he's a realistic chance. I'm not sure how many more Grand Slams Federer has in him, to be honest, when you consider the form and the performance of Murray, Djokovic and Nadal. Is he a chance of passing Federer?
How many more French Opens is he going to have before he retires? Because that'll be the answer.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to that. I mean, he will. I think if he can have another couple of years like this year, he's very good chance of doing it. But don't discount just how difficult those last couple are to win. You can ask Roger Federer that, even during his prime when he got past Roy Emerson and trying to catch up to Pete Sampras, it was a bit of a battle there for a while. So there is the whole psychological thing as well. But look, I think Rafa can probably take him in the end, but I think it is going to be probably on clay at the French. But the other thing too is I think, and it's an argument that we can put forward in writing later on, but on our websites and that. But I think he will always be number 2 to Federer in terms of his overall career.
Yeah, Darren, the other thing about this, just quickly, is that you've got to remember when Nadal's still going, you'd probably think that Federer's probably moved on. So there's one of the equations already gone.
He's got a couple of years on him.
And Djokovic, how late they'll probably stay in the situation. But I'm just saying the opportunity might be as strong because I can't see as good of tennis players coming through.
I look, for me, I think Federer's main concern right now is the Olympic Games. I think you'll find that he'll probably retire after the Olympics. And as I said last week, I'm not really sure whether he is the type of player who would want to go onto the Champions Tour. I think it's a bit like Tiger Woods. I couldn't see it happening with him either. I mean, these guys have been so superior in their careers, and they've won so much money. There's nothing to play for after all of that.
We'll talk about it briefly after the break, mate. But a big result for the Aussies in the Davis Cup overnight.
Yeah, 2-0 up, and we win the doubles. So we only need to win one more rubber in this tie, and then we're well and truly for next year up in that nice little world group, and we have a shot at winning the Davis Cup again in the next couple of years.
It'd be an outstanding result for us. We've been in the wilderness in the Davis Cup for a long, long time, so it'd be great to see him back. And Leighton Hewitt continued his good form with another win last night. It's great to see him playing some of his very best tennis again. Look, we'll take it. We've got to go to the news here on SportzScene. We'll be back shortly after. Massive second hour of the show planned. Plenty of Aussie rules football to talk about with the knee full. Norm Dare will be on the show with us from the Southport Sharks. We're also talking the AFL, motorsport, netball. Stay with us right here on SportzScene. We'll be here. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Corrali. We'll all be here through the second hour of the show. Make sure you're here with us.
Your station, 101 FM, with Saturday Sports Scene.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's 6 minutes past 9. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Craig Crowley, Ethan James, all here with you, taking you through to 10 o'clock when we'll wrap up things here on the show. It's now time to talk through the world of AFL football. And last night, the elimination semi-final, Geelong 13-18-96 defeating Port Adelaide 12-8-80. Good game of football. Port Adelaide came out firing early, had a good lead at half-time, but Geelong, obviously the coach had a word to him at half-time and they snapped back into gear and ended up with a good win there in the end. Craig, what did you think of this performance from Geelong?
Oh, look, it was what you'd expect from the side who's played in the last 6 or 7 final series or whatever the case may be. They were just sensational. Their old heads come to the fore. And the youth and exuberance, I suppose, of Port Power just wavered at the crunch time, but they really showed that they're a side to be reckoned with in the next couple of years. Terrific work by Ken Hinkley as the coach of Port Power to get them to where they are or where they're finished. But at the end of the day, I thought it was just a tremendous effort, and they should be commended on their year. But in saying that, disappointing finish because 23 points up. Any AFL side should really be able to control that and go on and win. And it just shows you the strength of the seniority of the Geelong football players to stand up when it was counted, and they actually did that. And it was a tremendous win by Geelong.
What are your thoughts on it, Darren?
Just a quick question, Craig. Yep. Paul Chapman, is he the most underrated finals footballer in living memory? I mean, he's won 2 Norm Smiths. He's playing for his career at the moment. He had a great first week, and then he's gone out last night and been best on ground and kicked 4. I mean, the guy's unbelievable.
Look,
and they're actually questioning whether he's going to play next year.
Yeah, but you could probably put in the fact that he was out for quite a long time through injury. So that always goes well for freshening up if they really control the injury well. So, he wasn't probably one of the players that have had a long, arduous year. He's sort of it's been interrupted, which always can be bad. But, yeah, look, the strength of the man, the knowledge, and look, I think one thing about the Geelong football side, when you look at it with Chapman in it, who does the opposition go to in the way of their key tag-up players? Do they go to Johnson? Do they go to Bartel? Do they go da-da-da-da-da? You know, there's so many champions within their group. One's got to be freed up. They probably thought with the lack of football that Chapman's had that we could probably release him a little bit, and that paid dividends. But I think the bigger question there with Chapman at this stage, mate, is after Franklin's incident last week with the head high, how will he fare in the with the review? We have made contact with the head. That's evident. He hasn't probably jumped. He's kept his feet pretty much on the ground. But it's spoken about. As soon as you make contact with the head in any level, you face the consequences, and that's going to be significant. So that could be a big loss to Geelong.
I think the big worry too is if you do leave the ground. Normally in footy, if you do leave the ground, you're almost gone straight away, aren't you? I mean, that's just premeditated beyond words. But we should point out too that what Craig is talking about is Paul Chapman was reported in the third quarter for rough conduct against Robbie Gray. So fingers crossed, because I mean a Geelong side in the finals without Chapo to me just isn't complete. To put it bluntly, I just love watching the guy play. I think he is amazing, and when we always have the conversation every year about the great performances in finals and the great players, his name, even though he's won the awards and all that sort of thing, for some reason doesn't often come up, and I just don't understand why, because I think he's one of the greatest at this time of year.
If he's not there next week, they're going to make their task even tougher. They're taking on a very, very good team in Hawthorn.
Oh, yeah.
But they can't curse, mate. Can they do it again? Can they extend this streak against Hawthorn again, even though Hawthorn are in such brilliant form?
Oh. I actually, honestly, I just think Hawthorn are raging favourites at the moment. I really do. And I think this Kennett curse business, yes, it's 11 games now, isn't it, at the MCG? But really, I think it's time for the Kennett curse to go bye-byes next week.
Oh, with the inclusion of Franklin and Cyril Rioli is going to make a huge difference to their group. But, it can play on people's minds, and it's just how people attack it, not only from the negative side of it, from Hawthorn, the positive side of Geelong, that they can actually, there is something there, whatever, call it a curse or whatever, but there's something there that makes them win and in tight games, and it's going to be a tight game.
Certainly will. Lastly, before we leave this game, guys, just the last word on Port Adelaide. Certainly the feel-good story of the AFL season this year. Last thoughts on their season?
It's a bit of a cowboy situation, really, isn't it? The situation where they've really come from our expectations. We're not great judges, are we, Darren?
Don't ever tip for us.
But it does. We spoke heavily before about Ricky Stewart and coaches. Well, here's one that's probably on complete opposite. Kenny Higley going from the Suns, going to a side that's on the bottom, and actually turned around, changed the culture, knew and believed on what the players they had in the group. He obviously sung the song that they wanted to listen to, and it's pretty important that if you're in bed together with everything that and they buy into it. Look, you can be anything, and because the gap in players from the top players to the bottom players in the competition, it's not much. It's a draft pick maybe at some times, and look, they perform well. They obviously had the players in the positions to do well, and like I said beforehand, with an ounce of luck, they would have been playing next week.
It's easy to fall in love with a fairy tale, but the one constant in football down through the century has been that fairy tales don't generally come true unless the side thoroughly deserves it. They were fantastic this year, and look out for them for the next 2 years.
I think the performance they had this year was probably fairy tale enough. It's a wonderful season they had, and they deserve all the credit for it. The other game tonight, the other elimination final, the Sydney Swans at ANZ Stadium taking on Carlton. Darren, I've got to ask you this before we get into any other things. Is it too soon to see any humour in the irony of Richmond getting beaten by the team that finished 9th last week?
Yes.
Is it, mate?
Wow.
Well, it was great. I'm sure the Essendon Football Club were very happy to see their alternate side get in and beat Richmond last week, but no, I'm just being cheeky. Look,
any last things you want to say just about Richmond while we're on the topic, mate?
Don't make him talk a bit.
Look out. They've finished 5th. They haven't looked like finishing in the top 8 for years, and I think the next 2 years, this is a side that's going to be genuinely right up in that top 4.
Fair enough. Look, let's talk about this game now. Sydney Swans up against Carlton tonight. 7:45 at ANZ Stadium. Craig, what do you think?
Yeah, probably the biggest talking point in the game so far is probably the Sydney Swans situation with Adam Goodes. They were trying their utmost to get him back. Now it's got to the stage now that he won't make himself available for the finals. albeit there's only probably, they've only a few games left in the year, so obviously it's a lot more significant than what a lot of people first thought, and probably for the longevity of Adam Goods to keep going, he might need to miss these games and have a clear football break. But look, I still believe Sydney, all going well, are probably one of the best midfield running sides in the competition. If Hanbury can get up and going and not play the tagging role, which he has been doing, I think he'll be better for it. The Jacks of the world, they just work. Their work rate is just sensational. You'll need Tippett to kick goals. You need Jesse White to be significant. You need all their big names, their ruckman, Mumford and Pike to be giving them first use of the ball. All the things you need. The run from Malcheski out of the halfback. These all things go well for the team, but they've got to have the strike power up forward, and that's the most important. I think Carlton, look, they've done extremely well. They had their ounce of luck, and I think it'll probably finish this week. They just don't seem, Judd, even though he's a champion of the game, he's still probably a little bit injured. But how long he can go into the game is significant. Cruiser being, their ruckman not playing because of a foot injury. All those sort of things might be just going against them at this stage, and I think Sydney will be up and about. And look, to be honest with you, it's pretty much the same as the rugby league. The top four sides are significantly better, and I think you'll find that this week that Sydney will be too strong.
Before I go to you for this one, Darren, I just want to ask you, we talked about it plenty of times before on the show about the Swans' advantage at the SCG. They're not playing at the SCG at ANZ Stadium. Would you rather play the Swans at ANZ Stadium? Or does that make no difference at all in your mind?
Well, that's actually the point that I was going to make. This is a neutral ground, basically. It really comes down to the quality of the two sides up against one another. Sydney go tall up forward, with Pike being named at full forward and Tippett has been named at centre-half forward. They're better with Goods. Unfortunately, it's tough luck. They haven't got him. But as much as I hate tipping against Malthouse this year, I'm going with Sydney. And if Sydney do somehow beat Freo the following week and make it through to a grand final, I reckon you might find the Goods will find a way to get back in that team.
Big gamble.
Big gamble, you reckon, Craig?
Yeah, terrific.
Can they get through that far?
Sydney?
Yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. They're a good side.
Yeah.
They're a balanced side. It's going to be hard because when you look into it, Geelong are a great side as well. And, if they do make the final and Geelong get through, they've got to get through Hawthorn.
Sure.
Freo can strangle you. That's going to be the test. And they meet them pretty much on even keel. Like I said, the top four sides are very close.
Fair enough. Look, we're both tipping Sydney in that one.
Yes. I'd say so.
Yep.
That game is tonight, ANZ Stadium, 7:45. We'll leave it there. We'll talk some NEFL when we come back from the break. We'll get Norm Dare from the Southport Sharks on the phone to discuss it all with us. Stay with us right here on SportzScene.
Life is for living, so live it. Life is for giving, so give it. Giving blood is cool, needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
Wanted, dead, or alive. Your station sponsor, AAA Car Body Removals, will pay top dollar for all cars, trucks and four-wheel drives, and they'll come and pick up free. Phone Joe on 0411 346 446.
Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, all still here with you, taking you through all the latest and greatest news from the world of sport. It's now time to talk some NEAFL, the NEFL competition. They're through to the grand final this weekend, but eliminated last week in the preliminary final were the Southport Sharks. And we've got the coach of the Southport Sharks Footy Club on the line with us, Norm Dare. Norm, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, mate, thank you very much for being with us. As we were talking about just there before, mate, you went down to Aspley last week in the preliminary final, mate. Tell us about that game and I guess what went wrong for your side on the day.
Well, hugely disappointing. Look, we were sort of competitive for a half, but after that, completely overrun. And I'd probably label it one of the finals performances Southport's ever put in. So, being the coach, I'm extremely disappointed and I accept responsibility and the effort just wasn't good enough.
What about the opposition though on the day, mate? What can you tell us about Aspley and perhaps their, I guess from their performance on the last weekend, their chances this weekend in the grand final?
Yeah, they played really well. Their biggest problem is they haven't had a break in the finals and they're coming up against virtually a full strength
Ryan's side. So there's going to be a massive task for them. But look, if they can play like they did last week, there'll be two things happen. One, it'll make me feel a bit better, and secondly, there's a chance to win the game.
Norm, Darren Madigan here, mate. Just give us an idea of what the conditions were like, because you guys kicked 8:21. I mean, was it heavy out on the track?
No, it was perfect conditions. The most disappointing point of view was when we played Redlands the week before, we were hitting targets all over the ground. Even blokes that only had a half a metre gap on their opponents. So it just didn't happen against Aspley. Maybe their pressure was a bit harder and a bit stronger, and our guys under a bit of pressure, but it certainly caused us to waste the footy. We go through the stats for the game. 60% of our possessions were ineffective. Well, you're never going to win a game of footy doing that.
Yeah, Norm, the other side of it too, like we spoke about it in depth, about the youth they had in their side and, the speed they had, their ability to, work both ways, especially, the Ives and Conways of the world, which are really good young kids coming through their system. And, obviously there's a few blokes within our group that are a little bit older. Their work rate was tremendous, and their kids and exuberance they had was just tremendous, and also our ability to just bomb the ball in and give Robbie Copeland, who's an ex-AFL footballer, the opportunity to come in third man up and really give our forwards not a great opportunity down in the forward line.
Yeah, you did right there, Craig. The other side of it is too, beating through the midfield, and the midfield's been our strength all year. We've got two Grover medalists in there, club best and fairest in there, and a former AFL player in there. It's just disappointing that they didn't show a little bit more respect to their opponents.
And and the other thing is, which I just touched on, the way the ball was just bombed in there, like Robbie Copeland was just given that opportunity to just come third man up, and we've relied a lot on during the course of the year on Josh Baxter, who's just a sensational footballer at centre half forward with his marking ability. It just gave him no opportunity forward, did it?
No, it certainly didn't. Everything was a contest, and he was outnumbered. And look, it was just smart play by Copeland. We tried 3 or 4 different players on him, and unfortunately the occasion might have got to our guys a bit because they were more content in chasing the footy than matching up on him. So, that certainly hurt us. But, I thought the midfield and the forward line was pretty ordinary on the day.
Norm,
sorry, how do you go first?
Yeah, I say, Norm, just looking at Aspley for a second. We know how strong Southport have been down through the decades, both on and off the field. But, it wasn't that many years ago that Aspley were playing in the lower divisions against teams like Springwood, Surfers Paradise and clubs like that. What has been the change to turn this team into what has been the story of the past 18 months, 2 seasons?
Well, since they've come into the competition, they've virtually had the north side of Brisbane all to themselves. Yep. So it gives them a recruiting zone from the central part of Brisbane right down to the Sunshine Coast. And, it's a real good growth area. Sandgate's got some really strong juniors. So they've virtually had it all to themselves. And I think that's probably where we're suffered a bit with Labrador and Broadbeach. It's been a 3-way tie for the good young kids on the Gold Coast. So we get some and they get some, whereas Aspley's been able to pick up those elite kids from virtually the entire north side and even, a little bit further up, even if you get the kids from Gympie or whatever. So they're certainly in a good position where they're on their own and they've got a real football growth area with a lot of established clubs like the Zulia Club, the Kedron Club, the Sandgate Club, who have all been in the past in the state league. So you can see there that it's a real foothold that's an advantage to them.
Yeah, that's it, Norm. Sorry, Ethan here, by the way. Just looking at Southport's sort of form over the past few years and where they sort of finished on the table, you've had 4 sort of third-place finishes in the past 5 years. So you're obviously a fairly successful club, but in terms of getting to that next level and really proving yourself as the top echelon, what do you think you have to do to get to that next level? Or a higher level, anyway?
Yeah, look, it's a good question, but when you consider the way the competition is now with 2 AFL sides included in it, it's always going to be a tough ask if they've got a healthy list and, they've got their full side of listed players playing. So when you can look at the thirds over the last 4 years, you could probably say, in essence, under the old competition, they're probably grand finals, which just hasn't occurred because of the situation of having the AFL sides and also the Northern Territory, who are virtually a state team. So the competition's gone up. The Labradors and the Broad Beaches have improved their recruiting. You know, everyone we speak to, they speak to, so it's a three-way tie. It really gets to a bidding war, and when you've got a salary cap, at some stages you've got to dip out and we lose players that we'd like to get. So, you know, it's been harder, but I think the club, because of the management behind the scenes and whatever, has managed to hold in there in that top three spot for 4 of the last 5 years, and look, I think that's a credible effort, but once again, it's the Southport Footy Club, and we want to be the top dog, and that's what everybody aims for, and that's what we desire and crave, and we won't settle for anything less. Like, to us, third is a failure.
Norm, let's talk about some good news for your side during the week, though. Hayden Keel picking up the Grogan Medal for best and fairest in the Northern Conference of the NEAFL competition. Tell us a bit about him and what he's done this season to deserve that medal.
Yeah, he came back from Melbourne. He's a Southport junior, which is even more pleasing. He's had a terrific year through the midfield. He's taken up a fitness course where he's a fitness advisor in personal training, and I think that's really helped him, and he's got to a stage where when he came back to Melbourne, I think he'd be the first one to admit he was a little bit overweight his first year back, and this year he's fully fit. And look, everybody knows Hayden. He's always had the ability, like he was on the Brisbane rookie list. Then he went down to Hawthorn and tried out there while playing with Box Hill. So he certainly had the potential to be an AFL player, and he's starting to realise that in the middle part of his career where he should be at his peak, and that's what's happening.
Norm, the obvious thing is now and we've spoken to the other coaches as they've left the competition. It just so happens one of them was with Redlands, and what's going to happen to the competition next year going into a mainstream NEAFL comp. Your thoughts on going into the competition? Where does Southport sit with it, and also the situation? How good is the competition going to be for AFL in general?
Yeah, look, I think it'll go up another level. I know from our point of view, we'll be recruiting from the Broadbeach and Labrador clubs, and hopefully topping up our list. It'll become more elitist to training, where you've only got your senior squad of 35 and probably a development squad of about 10. So, you know, the training will be better. I think the playing will be better. The players will have to adjust to more travel, which is probably going to be a problem. But generally, I'd just say, look, the footy's going forward, and I think it can only get better and better, and hopefully by doing it this way, we can now be more competitive against the Lions, the Suns and Sydney Swans and the GWS Giants, because of the more depth we should have with the combination of virtually 3 clubs.
All right, mate, let's talk about the grand final now, taking place tomorrow afternoon at 1:15pm at Yeronga. The Brisbane Lions taking on Aspley Hornets in this one. Brisbane Lions going for back-to-back titles. You've, of course, played these teams plenty of times throughout the years, mate. How do you see this grand final going down, and who's your tip to win the flag on tomorrow afternoon?
I think if Ashley could contain the 12 Brisbane forwards, like they've got Lyle back who's coming off a 5-goal game against Geelong, and Sammy Michael's back from being rested, I think if they can control those players, and Cornelius as well, I think Ashley got a real chance, you know, because I think they match up well with them through the midfield. It's just whether their defence is tall enough to match up on those players. And if they are, if they can get a windy day and the ball's on the ground, or a wet day where it becomes a bit of a fight for it, I think Ashley's in with a real chance. I thought they should have beaten Brisbane in the second semi, but once again, Brisbane are a bit stronger this time. But we probably should have beaten Brisbane when we played them through the year. So if we went by those 2 games, Aspley have given us a real caning 2 out of the last 3 weeks. So they've been impressive. I'll give them a real good chance.
And finally, Norm, before we leave this, you know, talking also about the Grogan Medal Night, and we're talking about Aspley, I think a friend of yours that was acknowledged on Grogan Medal Night and been elevated to a legend status in the Queensland Hall of Fame, John Blair. Just a few words on John and his contribution to Queensland football.
Yeah. When John first moved up, he stayed at my place for a while, and I never charged him any rent, Jack. And I think after the last 3 weeks, I might send him a bill with interest. We've been good friends from our times at Fitzroy. Look, he is really full on with his footy, and I admire that. He plays for keeps. That's the way he played, and that's the way he coaches. And he came up and he played state footy while he was coaching. He just threw himself into everything, and he just loves his footy. And look, it's no surprise how well they've done under him, because we always felt last year they had the potential, but maybe it was the players running the show and not the coach. But this, with John Blair, you can be assured that the coach is running the whole scene, and I'm sure he'll have him up and about, and he's tactically very sound. I think he might end up with one of his greatest victories with a bit of luck.
The NEFL Grand Final, the Northern Conference Grand Final, is tomorrow afternoon at Yeronga, 1:15 p.m. The Brisbane Lions up against the Aspley Hornets. Norm, thank you very much for being with us this morning on the show. We appreciate your time.
Okay, it's a pleasure. I just wish we had tomorrow to play.
We did too, mate. Thanks a lot for your time, mate. We'll take a break here on Sports Scene. When we come back, we'll get through the world of motorsport. Stay with us. Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM, 28 minutes to 10. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, all here with you, taking you through to the top of the hour. And joining us on the line, our resident motorsport guru from the Australian Karting Association, Mr. Lee Hanatscheck. Lee, welcome back to the show, mate.
Great to be with you, Kev. Great to be with you on this fine, overcast, gloomy Saturday morning.
Certainly, mate. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. It's a big weekend in the V8 supercars, mate. The Sandown 500, the endurance races, they're here. The biggest time of the year for the V8 supercars.
Yes, and for the first time, the endurance races battle for their own sort of championship in the Pertec Enduro Cup, and the Wilson Security Sandown 500 is the first one of three. Of course, the Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000 and Armorall Gold Coast 600, the remaining two events in that sort of mini championship. And it was yesterday, Red Bull Racing Australia's Craig Lowndes that topped the time charts, and a record time, not necessarily because of the cars that got faster, but a lot of the track has been resurfaced. So Lowndes finished on top. Lee Holdsworth, surprisingly enough, in the Mercedes for Erebus Motorsport and Irwin Tools, was second quickest, and Will Davison in the Ford Performance Racing Pepsi Max Ford Falcon was third. Will Davison actually held the fastest lap until the checkered flag, and then on the last flying lap, Lowndes and Holdsworth just bettered him. Not by much whatsoever, I must say. There's literally a tenth between the top three, and then Scott McLaughlin's in fourth fastest. He'll be one to watch out for. Jack Perkins was fast yesterday. They were very solid all throughout the day. So I mean, I think the endurance races, it's going to be a matter of who can be there at the end, of course, but it's not just outright speed. So I think my dark horse is the Scott McLaughlin Jack Perkins entry.
Darren, mate, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at what Craig did yesterday, and I mean, with the fuel issue and everything, and as we were talking last week about the fuel side of things, I was really confused at the time. It turns out what I was saying was right. I mean, with ethanol, it is you do cop a fuel consumption penalty, and that's one of the reasons why they're jumping up and down about this, because we're into the enduros and fuel consumption is going to be a massive thing. So you get a higher octane, but you lose a lot in fuel. But it doesn't matter, because they're all going to have to run the same fuel this weekend, as far as I know, because I don't think there's been any changes in the last couple of days. Craig Lowndes, he just loves this place, and honestly, I'm not going to go past the obvious on this. I think he's going to get up and win this.
Yeah, I mean, I think they will be strong. You can't discount Jamie Whincup. He was well down the order in 18th with Paul Dumbrell. But certainly it was a brand new car he debuted yesterday, so he's not fazed by being down in practice times. They went over practice today, and then they'll go for qualifying. They're talking a lot about the fact that drafting will be a big key to recording some good speeds down the back straight there at Sandown.
Yeah.
As per normal, no change. But, you spoke briefly about the fuel there, Darren. Basically what happened there is the V8 supercars are now mandated a minimum of 4 pit stops for each team at Sandown, and I think it's 8 for Bathurst 1000. So, an interesting way of sort of trying to keep the new boys happy, but they're actually not that happy. I think they were happier with the fuel, given the fact they're 20 years behind in development of these engines that the Ford and Holden have got on top of. So, I think it'll be very interesting to see how it pans out tomorrow.
And Lee, that back straight's going to be very interesting, because they're hitting 258 to 260 down the speed trap.
Yeah, I know. It's it's huge speed, especially around Sandown. I think one of the big keys to that is the fact they're getting out of that turn 2, 3, 4 section a lot quicker than what they used to at Sandown because it's all been resurfaced. So, I think that's it's going to be a good thing for the fans to see extra speed going into what they know as Dandenong Corner. I think tomorrow's long race, it always produces some excitement, and Melbourne weather throws in another curveball down there. I remember one year, I think it was 2004 or 2003, we were there, and it was literally hailing as if you thought it was snowing just before the race started. Then it found up for beautiful sunshine for the race. So, that's the type of thing that Sandown can throw at you.
Some interesting things going on during the week. We've seen FPR, I think, have signed Ford for a single year extension, but there's also a bit of rumours floating around about AMG are not overly happy with what's going on with their third party with Mercedes. So I'm just wondering, maybe that's an area for ProDrive to look at in 2015.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly basically, overnight Mercedes heavyweight Tobias Moores has sort of rammed up the pressure on Airbus, saying they must win races. That, as you say, it's a 2-year agreement with Airbus at the moment from AMG. Although Mercedes-Benz Australia had heavy reservations from the on the program, but certainly it is said that they are very much got to win races. They've got to be up the front. They've showed some good speed. There's no doubt about that. Unfortunately, next year they're going to lose one of their rising stars in Tim Slade. It was announced yesterday that he will be leaving the team. Very strong rumours that he will take the spot that's being vacated by the retiring Russell Engel at Walkinshaw Performance. So that would be, I think a good move for Tim in the fact that he'll be back in what is referred to now as a competitive car. 6 months ago he wouldn't have been saying that whatsoever. But I think they're on top of this program now. They're going to be on the pace, and I think he'll make a good mix there for James Courtney and Garth Tander alongside of him in a stablemate of the HRT team.
Yeah, look, I can completely understand too what Mercedes are saying. I mean, if you take a look at the car that they've got racing, or the silhouette of the car that they've got racing, compared to when they were last in the touring car series, and the car that they last ran all those years ago was a Mercedes 190E, and it was Mercedes 190E was definitely a budget Mercedes. So you could literally win on Sunday, sell on Monday. I'm not sure that the average Mercedes-Benz driver who's going out to buy an AMG 63 really cares what happens in Australian touring cars on the weekend.
Not yet, they don't. But if they start winning, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll get behind it. And as you say, Darren, but they'll be behind it from the corporate box, not the hill like the Ford fans are. That's probably the easiest way to put it. But certainly I think, Mercedes and Nissan certainly they've got to get some more results on the board. Nissan did get one under controversial circumstances. They've both showed some pace. I think if both Mercedes and Nissan can finish on the podium at some stage this year, it'll be a good result. Nissan have already achieved that, but now they've got to do it with the non-E70 fuel, which they used that weekend. And that way they'll silence the knockers, and we'll be in for a good year in 2014.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Mercedes, and I love the fact that they're in the championship. I'm just not sure. I mean, I see Mercedes and Nissan being two separate things. I think it's good for Nissan, but I'm not sure that it really matters to the average Mercedes driver in 2013. But that's just my thing. Moving on, mate, our worst nightmare in Formula One has happened, although it could be a lot of fun to watch, the meltdown. Kimi Räikkönen is joining Fernando Alonso for 2 years starting from next year. How long do you reckon Alonso will put up with it?
2 years.
Yeah, you reckon?
It'll stay there for 2 years. They might not talk to each other. They might they might have a bit of a joke and very much not talk to each other, or if they do, it'll be in a sarcastic manner. But I think they'll last for 2 years. I'm gonna go against you there, Darren. But
until they take one another off.
Kimi will just go. It was there to do a job. Kimi won't care. Alonso, on another matter, I think he will get he'll get more upset than Kimmy will. There you go. There's my tip.
I agree, and that's what I think the problem will be, because I mean, obviously, Kimmy's very much I don't care. I just want to get out, do my race, get back. I don't really like to do all the publicity stuff. I just want to go home. But whereas Alonso, I mean, we saw what happened with Lewis. Yes, he's a few years older and more mature now, but I just can't see it lasting. I really can't.
It's viewing anyway, put it that way.
It's going to be a lot of fun, isn't it? And look, the other thing too is it opens up the silly circus. I mean, obviously there is now a seat available at Lotus. Whether that will go to Felipe Massa or whether Felipe Massa might end up somewhere like Sauber is another big question. So
might be his Hulkenberg at Lotus. There you go.
That's and the other thing too, it's interesting you bring up Hulkenberg. How's this for very ordinary? Apparently, according to his management, Ferrari told him of the news that he didn't have the Ferrari drive by text message. That's what's being said.
Pretty new age. That's probably the best way of putting that. Pretty new age.
Talk about getting dumped before you even get together. But that's pretty ordinary stuff. The other big news during the week in international motorsport: Michael Waltrip Racing in NASCAR copping the biggest fines and kicked out of the chase. And I don't know whether you're aware of it or not yet, but Jeff Gordon, in an unprecedented move, has been moved in as the 13th driver in the chase overnight.
Yes, I did read that briefly a moment ago, actually. I was doing a quick bit of research, and now it's interesting times, because I've now placed the number 22 car of Joey Logano on probation for a similar action earlier in the year. So basically that sort of allowed them to put the Hendrick car of Jeff Gordon into the chase, and made it unprecedented terms. So it's weird and wonderful times. But have you seen the video of the incident which has caused all this drama when with Clint Boyer spinning out, Darren?
I have, actually. It's I mean, it all seemed fairly innocuous at the time, but gee, I mean, look at what's happened. And the other thing too is the Waltrip brothers. Now, I know Darryl's not involved in this, but both Darryl and Michael are big name commentators on Fox Sports over there in the States. And I'm just wondering how this is going to affect all that. Napa, I don't even know what Napa is, but there's some company over there that obviously sponsor Michael Waltrip Racing, and they're actually looking very seriously at dumping them.
Yeah, Napa is actually an auto parts store over there. It's like a super cheap or an auto barn type scenario, Napa Auto Parts. So, but yeah, I do agree with it. It's very interesting just to see it all come out. But I think the big thing here is actually, until you look at that video, go on to NASCAR. I think it's NASCAR.com or YouTube, and search for the Clint Boyer spin.
Yes.
And you listen to the talk in the in-car, and it does make for interesting sort of listening. And then now you hear it back, you go, well, yeah, you can actually understand what they're talking about there, but they didn't talk about it enough. And even Dale Earnhardt Jr. said the boy just came into the corner. He'd like to seen nothing before. He just spun the car.
Yeah.
It was behind him. It just spun. So I don't know what Boyer was thinking, that he was going to get away with it. But NASCAR put the big foot down and said, no, boys, you don't play like that. You play by our rules, and we're here to race, and the best man shall win. And they don't mess around at NASCAR. Just further to what you were saying about Joey Logano, he has taken pole at Chicagoland for the first race this weekend of the chase, and joining him on the front row will be Brad Keselowski. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Juan Pablo Montoya was last or second last to qualify. He's gone right up there into third spot. Unfortunately, Jeff Gordon sitting in sixth. He'll have a whole new lease of life this weekend. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Danica Patrick's boyfriend, is sitting in fifth spot after taking pole for last week's race. And I can tell you, Marcus Ambrose is down in... where have you gone, Marcus? You were about 26th at one stage. Here we go, 26th, Marcus Ambrose. Just before we move on, Marcus Ambrose, we're coming to the end. Obviously, he can't go anywhere in the championship now. It's just the next 10 races are basically circulating. Where does he sit now with Richard Petty Motorsports? Because his teammate's been beating him all season. Yeah, I mean, I to be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, I think the biggest thing over there is getting in a good car. At the moment, he's not in a good car. Where did he go? There's no spots at Hendrick. Is there any spots at Joe Gibbs? I don't know. Where is the next step? I think if he's solid over there in America. He's not great, but he's solid. He's making a good living over there by running, 15th to 20th on the ovals and 10th on these big days. Yes, everyone wants to go there and win, but there's a lot of drivers out there who are making a good career out of just running at the top level and, being there consistently, and that's what he's doing. So, I think my tip is he'll probably stay where he is, just try and sort the issues out and run the team and build the team around him to get the best team, but who knows? I mean, it's a funny old game over there.
Look, I hope he does too. And from a PR point of view, and you've seen how very good he is in the PR situation, he's probably worth another 10 spots on the grid.
Oh, absolutely. He did have a good PR company looking after him back here in Australia, which taught him a lot, Darren, of course. But certainly he's doing a good job over there, and that's the one thing. Americans love him. Americans absolutely love him.
Sensational. We should point out to MotoGP, Marc Marquez and Dani Pedrosa and Valentino Rossi at the moment, the three fastest riders after practice session 2 at Misano for the San Marino MotoGP. Australian Brian Staring on the Honda, sitting in 23rd spot. Any news on karting, Lee?
Karting, really, it's a bit of a quiet week this week because it all ramps up next week for the Castro Edge CIK Stars of Karting finale down in Melbourne. 3 titles on the line down there. Dutchman Joey Hansen is in the box seat for the Pro Gearbox Championship. He's about 60 points ahead of Gold Coast to Chris Hayes. And in the Pro Light category, it is Sydney's Matthew Waters who holds a 7-point lead over Victorian George Duranis. And in the Pro Junior ranks, it's Sydney's James Abella, who is holding a 3-point lead going to the final round over Liam McClellan. So those 2 titles are certainly up for grabs as they battle for the James Courtney Trophy and the John Target Perpetual Trophy, respectively. And then it will be some great action down there at the Todd Road Circuit. And on another form of motorsports, on the dirt track this time, it's the World Rally Championship, obviously, is down in Coffs Harbour this weekend at the Coffs Harbour region, let's say, because they're all over the place down there, and I don't know. I'm still not excited about the fact that the Australian Rally, the World Rally Championships here, Darren. I'm not sure about you, but it certainly hasn't created a lot of hype around where I am.
No, but needs to go back to WA.
So Sebastian Ogier took another step towards his maiden World Rally Championship crown. He dominated the afternoon stages yesterday in his Volkswagen Polo. He then also dominated the Super Special stage last night around the showgrounds down there. So, who's going to stop him? He's got about an 80-point lead already in the championship. And he's certainly, if he can win this weekend, I think he can actually wrap that championship up. So he's started today off well. I think it's having a look. He's second fastest time in this morning's opening couple of stages, and he now leads 20 seconds over Mikko Hirvonen in the Citroen. So certainly it's Ogier doing it nice and comfortably down in Coffs Harbour.
All right, we'll do a nice wrap-up on Rally Australia next week. Thanks for joining us, Lee. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
All the best, mate. We'll catch you next week on the show. We'll take a break here. We'll talk through the world of netball. Stay with us on SportzScene.
Hi, Steve Kieran.
Welcome back to SportzScene here on 101 FM. It's 8 minutes to 10. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, all still here with you. And joining us on the line, a very, very regular part of the show now from the Golden South Jags, Paula Stewart, to talk to us through the world of netball. Paula, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show, Paula.
G'day, Paula. Darren here. Good morning. It's a big weekend. We're into the internationals. We go to the bottom of the world tomorrow to play in Invercargill against New Zealand. And Paula, what are your thoughts initially on how we're going to go? They're always great matches, aren't they?
They're always fantastic matches. So Australia looks like they're prepared. They've been over there for a few days now, and looks like they're going around New Zealand. They've visited a few schools, so I think the hype's up there for them. I think they're well prepared, and I think it's going to be a close match, but Australia's going to go over the line.
All right, the first test of what is known as the 2013 Constellation Cup. It'll be broadcast live on SBS2 on free-to-air from 5:30. Broadcast at 5:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. We broadcast live half an hour earlier on Fox Sports 3 if you pay for your telly. But at the moment, Shani Leighton is looking at making the comeback and getting a starting spot in that defensive circle. What do you think about that?
Shani is a very dynamic player. So she's one that comes out just a bit like a hound dog on the netball court. So if you need a bit of a lift and a bit of inspiration, I think Shani Leighton's the one that's going to be out there to do it. So, yeah, I think she's more than capable of going out there. All right.
As long as they haven't gone and changed the squad on me. The team at the moment is Laura Geitz captain, Bianca Chatfield vice-captain, the other vice-captain being Kimberly Green, Caitlin Bassett, Erin Bell, Maddie Brown, Rebecca Bully, Paige Hadley, Renee Hallinan, Shani Leighton, as we just mentioned, Demelza McLeod, Nat Medhurst, who we haven't heard much from since she's left the Firebirds, and Kimberly Ravillon and Caitlin Thwaites. You're not aware of any late changes there?
No, I haven't seen any late changes at all. I was having a look last night, but no, it looks like it's all the same team.
Do you like the team, given that they'll be up against the usuals, people like Irene Van Dyke, etc.?
Yeah, I think the team, Laura Geitz is playing, this season she's been playing one of her best netball. So I think she'll be able to contain her. Kim Ravillon, if she gets the opportunity, I'm not too sure if she will start, but she's one that's a little bit unknown, I suppose, to everyone. She's still, learning the game and young and very dynamic. So it'll be quite interesting. So with the New Zealand team, if we can stop the New Zealanders feeding into Irene Van Dyke, I think that would stop the whole game. So I think we've got a really defensive centre court that'll be able to help out Laura Geitz in the back line. All right, before we move on to some things going on at Golden South, in the last week since we last talked, Grace Rasmussen has moved from the Northern Mystics to Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic, so from one rival to another, because I know they're strong rivals, those two teams. And Joe Tripp has moved from the Canterbury Tactics to the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic. So obviously the Magic lost a number of players, including Van Dyke and I think Lehman and some important players. They're starting to fill their squad back up. What do you think about those moves? Yeah, I mean, Magic, I think, have gone down quite a bit because, they were always known, since the start of the ANZ to be quite a strong team. So, but it looks like a lot of teams this year are rebuilding. Everyone seems to be swapping and moving around and getting a little bit of a taste from a different coach. So, it'll be interesting next year because it's a little bit hard to know where everyone else has gone.
Fair enough. In the next coming weeks, probably start next week actually, we'll start to take a team a week and start to tear them apart as we find out who the teams are. They actually have to have their, all the teams have to be in by about the 24th of September. We've got some that are already finished, like the Firebirds, I think, and the Thunderbirds and the Fever, so we will start taking a look at those. Paula, Golden South, I mean, it never stops for you guys. You finish a season and you're starting to look at players already.
Yes, so what's happening at the moment is the coaches had to nominate again, and hopefully we'll find out this week who's got the coaching gigs, and then next week hopefully the players will then start putting in their nomination forms. So the next few weeks will probably be an exciting time, starting to get the QCC teams organised. You do have a very long pre-season, don't you? Yes, we finished very early. I'm not too sure if things are going to change next year. I've heard little rumours, so that we might be starting that a little bit later. So it is a bit of a long pre-season, but they've had a long time off. But we've got the Jags, good old break-up dinner tonight. So if you're down at the Gold Coast and you see some rock stars moving around, that'll be the Jagies players.
Well, Sports Scene sends its love and best wishes to all the girls there. We've been big supporters of you guys, and you guys have been big supporters of us for a lot of years. Paula, thank you so much. We'll catch up with you next week.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Paula. We'll take a break here on Sports Scene. We'll come back and wrap it all up.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Yes, welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Darren Madigan, Ethan James, Craig Crowley, all still here with you. Big thanks to Paul Stewart for being on the show with us just now. Big thanks to Lee Hanatscheck earlier, of course. And, of course, Craig Ingebrigtsen and Norm Dare, I should say, also on the show today. It's been a big show. Shout out for the NEFL Grand Final. If you want to tune into the broadcast, check it out on ABC Brisbane tomorrow afternoon live from 1:15 p.m. The NEFL Grand Final between the Brisbane Lions and Aspley. Just a quick shout-out, mate. Gary Ablett, a big achievement during the week.
Yes, just on the MVB awards in the AFL, great result for the Suns. Gary Ablett winning by 1,000 votes. His fifth MVP, a sensational effort.
1,000 votes. It's incredible stuff. Quick tip for the weekend, Ethan.
Quick tip. I'm firmly on the Cowboys bandwagon this afternoon when they take on the Sharks. Hopefully they get a win.
I'll join you on that bandwagon. Darren, what about you, mate?
Go Cowboys, and Australia should be in the World Group after this weekend.
Fingers crossed.
Nice.
We're going to leave it there, guys. Thanks very much for being here, Craig, Ethan, Darren.
Pleasure.
We'll be back same time, same place next week. Loads more to talk about next week. Stay with us here on 101 FM.